Yes, hello. Yeah, we are just starting. Just 1 second. Let me share the Zoom board again. Yes, so I hope you people can see the board. So let's see what we were doing yesterday and we'll continue from there. First of all, since we covered some new stuff the last time, any questions? Though I will, of course, in the process also revise, but any questions, any big doubts, something which you couldn't follow or have forgotten? Okay, right. So essentially, what is our goal right now? Wait, someone is messaging or has joined. Okay. So essentially, what we are trying to do is we are trying to count the number of orbits. This is our prime goal. But let me explain this again. Okay. So first of all, we have a setup. Okay. We have a set X. Let's say, for example, we could have something like a hexagon. Okay. Could have a hexagon. So here X is just 6 points. And then we have some colors. Okay. So y, I mean, just using the, actually using the typical notation. So y is, let's say, 3 colors. So number of colorings without any symmetry, without considering the different symmetries. 1 second, to silent my phone. Yeah. Number of configurations. So this will be, I should say, the gross set of configurations, okay, is basically y to the power x, right? Basically, it's a set of all functions from x to y. If you think about it, right, for every point x, every point in x, so there are 6 points essentially, right? There are 6 points. And each of the points has 3 choices, right? A, B, C, the 3 colors. So basically the number of functions. So the answer here would be 3 to the power 6. So that's why this gross set of configurations is denoted by y to the power x. It's a good notation. Good notation. Okay. Now what do we want to understand? How many actual configurations after considering symmetries? Considering symmetries. Let's say in this case, rotational symmetries only. 2D, I should say 2D rotational symmetries, because otherwise reflection is also a rotation in 3 dimensions. Okay? Let's say 2D, whatever, rotational symmetries. Okay. Now, how can I frame this in the language of orbits? That is a question. So the first thing is that I'm calling G as the set of 2D rotational symmetries, and I'll be calling them as the identity symmetry, the most fundamental rotation. You can understand what that is, 2 pi by 6, and then the other rotations. This is my set of symmetries. This set has a very interesting property which symmetries in general has. Two symmetries combine to form another symmetry, isn't it? Two symmetries combine to form another symmetry. For example, a square and then e to the power 5 will combine to form which symmetry? It will just be the symmetry A, right? If you think about it, right? So you can just, I mean, you can do it algebraically. This is a to the power 7, but a to the power 7 is a times a to the power 6. A to the power 6 is 1, and so it's just a. But also you can see by the rotation that 1 goes to 3, and then you take 5 steps from there, you see you go back to 1. You can check that. Sorry, you'll go to 2. So it means that 1 is going to 2 overall. So overall, this is acting like, okay. So we are able to multiply symmetries. Okay. For every symmetry, there is an inverse symmetry, opposite symmetry is there, and so on. So that's why this set of symmetries is actually called a group. Okay. Now what we are doing, this group is acting on the set of all configurations, on the gross set of configurations. It is kind of acting because when you, what do I mean? When you apply a symmetry on a configuration, you get another configuration. Okay, when you apply a symmetry on a configuration, you get another configuration. Now, so this implies, when you do that, this implies the set of configurations, I think that's the easiest way to say, I think, set of configurations get partitioned, right? Those configurations which can be gotten from one another by application of symmetry will now be considered same. Okay, each part is an orbit. I'm just writing the key points. You see, each part is called an orbit, and we want to count the number of orbits. I'm trying to make it very clear what I said in the beginning, what I mean by counting the number of orbits. Let me also just show a little bit here, because in this case we have colors and we are allowed to use any color in any number of times. So let me just show some things that are going on over here. So for example, I could have one coloring as follows. So this is just the locations, and then 6. I could have one coloring as follows. A, B, A, B. This is one coloring. Now I could have, okay, now let's look at this coloring. When you apply the, wait one second, when you, so let me just think about this one. 1 goes to 4, you skip 2, you skip 2. 1 second, no, I'll just change it. I'll just change my coloring because I want to drive home a point. So I'll change the coloring. I'm only using 2 colors in this case. This is one particular configuration. Now, when you, someone is trying to enter, just 1 second. Yeah. Now, when you apply the symmetry, okay, so there are some problems with my coloring. Yeah, so I should just say A1, B1. So these are my colorings are, that's a mistake I made. So this is A1, B1, and C1. Okay. Now, when I apply the symmetry A squared to it, then what do I get? Yes, that will, yeah, that's you're right. In that sense, it changes. But in fact, at this point, I do not want to write. Yes, exactly. I do not want to write this. I just want to say this. And in the space, they have the configurations. But you are right. You will get the same thing. You will again get the, but I'll just still draw it. Okay. You get the exact same thing. And this is where the problem, this is why the problem is difficult. Now, why are we getting the same things? Because we are using one color multiple times. Otherwise, it could never happen. Okay, so this is why the problem has become difficult. So if every color was distinct, then, and let's say the configurations were x1, x2, x3 till xk. Let's say this was the set of all configurations. Okay, and now if every color was distinct, okay, if all colors distinct, then the problem is super easy, right? Because then x1, you have x1, then you apply these 5 other symmetries, you get 5 other things, right? X1 will have 5 other things. right? And so these 6 things will form one orbit. You know the size of each orbit. Size of each orbit, size of the orbit of x1 will be just 6. And when I say orbit of x1, you can also say orbit of, let's say, if x1 is mapped to a times application of a on x1, then this, from x1, if you apply a inverse, you can go to x1. So that orbit is good. Its size is 6, and each orbit has fixed size. Now, since each orbit has size 6, you can simply, whatever your gross answer was, depending on number of colors and so on, you can divide that by 6. You can divide that by 6, right? That would be your answer. Here, the issue is that the size of each orbit is not fixed. And so we need to understand how to find the size of an orbit, because size of here the question is counting the number of orbits, but the issue is that before that there is a more fundamental obstruction, and that is finding the size of an orbit. How can you describe it? Okay, in terms of g, in terms of the set of all motions. Okay, so we have this new problem: how to find the size of an orbit. How to find or describe, find size of an orbit. So what is the situation? You have a set X. So this can be called the configuration set. I will not call it X, I'll call it C, because otherwise that will get confused with y to the power X. This is like your y to the power X basically. This is basically like y to the power X, but what I'm saying will apply in more generality. So I'm not calling it y to the power X. Okay. But you can think of it like this. You have a set of these configurations, X1, X2, X3. Let's say there are some m things. M. So this is the gross set of configurations. Okay, before we find the orbits and count the number of orbits. Okay, so we have these gross set of configurations, and we have a group. Again, now I'll make this general group, meaning that just say these are the motions. Okay, this like x1, g1 will move these things. It may fix some things. Okay, we have g1, g2, g3. So these are your motions. Rotations or whatever you can think of in your head. Okay, otherwise it can get a little tricky. Okay, now if the action of G on C, okay, has no fixed points, Not if nothing gets fixed, then size of orbit, then size, I'll just say size, then size is, so this again is wrong here, I should call this n, gn, then size is, then what would be the size of every orbit? N, right? Because you start from x1, you apply g1 to it, it goes somewhere, right? You start with x1, you apply the motion g1, you get another configuration. You apply the motion g2, you get another configuration. You apply the motion g3, you get another configuration, and so on. You apply the motion gn, you get another. I should say the identity configuration is there. That fixes, of course. Other than that, yeah, and identity computation comes here. So I mean, this is a problem again. So just call n minus 1 here, minus 1, right? And you can check that all these also will be distinct. Okay, so if x takes, if x by g1 goes to x1, and if the motion g2 takes it to some g2 x1, okay, then these two have to be different. Why? Because if this is after some rotation of x1, you get this, and after some rotation, some other rotation gt, you get this. Now if these two were equal, then what would happen? You can do the inverse of the g2 motion, kind of like the inverse of the motion, and you get, then this guy becomes a fix. This guy is like, this will again be a motion. Now then it's like this motion is fixing x1, but we have assumed that no motion is fixing. Okay, that's why all these are different. That this is some theory I'm saying in very fast way. These things have to be said properly. Okay, but I'm just saying it in a loose way. Is this point clear to everyone? Okay, that's good. Okay, but essentially you can understand simply that, yeah, if there are no fixed points, then you get n, and then the size of every orbit is n, and so in total you will have m by n number of orbits. Okay. Now here is a new, so it means that number of elements that get fixed is very essential, is very important to know. Okay. So okay, let's say no fixed points. I should say no fixed point except the identity, except E. E is always a fixed. So there's one fixed point. Okay, now here is a new notion called the stabilizer of an element. Okay, stabilizer of x1. Now this is basically all the motions. Yes, 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 sure, sure. No, I will send you surely. I send you, yes. So okay, so the stabilizer is basically all those things, all those motions that fix x1. Okay, all, because we're realizing that the nothing, like since nothing is getting fixed, the answer is simple, and it has to do with the fact that things are not getting fixed. We realized that in some previous example. That's why we are abstracting out a notion of stabilizer. That is, let's see the set, and maybe this will determine what things are fixed and how many. This will maybe determine the size. So all the motions that are that fix the particular thing, that fix x1. Okay, because see, if nothing, if x1 is not fixed by anything, then it goes to different places, so it will go to n different places. It will go n minus 1 different places, so in total you get n things out. Size of the orbit of x1 will become n. Now in some sense, if some things are getting fixed, sorry, I mean if something's fixed if something's fixed x1, okay, let's say this was, for example, g1, g2, g3. Let's say these three things fix x1, then it's like these are wasting, and these are going to reduce the set of our orbit set, or size of our orbit, right? This will reduce the orbit of x1 because it's not taking x1 to new places. These three are like waste. You get my point, right? So x1 is hit by x1 is hit by g1 motion, nothing is happening, goes back to g1, x1. You hit it with x2, nothing is happening. Hit with x3, nothing is happening. So these are the problematic elements. These are going to reduce our orbit size. Okay. Now here is a claim which I'll make first. It's kind of an extended version of something called division rule, but it goes into very nice group theory, which can actually use to prove things like Fermat's little theorem and all, simple number theoretic results. But anyways, okay, orbit of x1 will be equal to size of the group, okay, that we have. If there was no fixed point other than identity, then this would be the answer. Now, if there are some fixed points, if there are some points, if there are some things which fix x1, if nothing fixed x1, then the answer would be this. If there are some things which are fixing x1, then we'll not subtract but divide. Divide by the size of those things that fix x1. Okay, this is a critical result. This is called the, in group theory, it's called orbit stabilizer theorem. But right now, if you read it group theoretically, you may not understand, because they'll define it group action as some function, binary function, blah, blah, some complicated stuff. Because actually, I'm putting a lot of things under the cover. So it's a little vague. This is the thing. Now, how do we understand this at least? See, look at your group. Yes. Hmm? The action of G on C has no fixed points, then the size is n. Yeah. Yes, this expression, yes, is absolutely valid. That's what we proved, right? So this was what we saw in the beginning. So if there is no other fixed point than E, then this would become size 1. Stabilizer would become size 1, right? Sorry. Yes, yes, it's always valid, right? Because and then it cannot happen that nothing stabilizes x1. Identity will stabilize, and so size is 1. And that we even saw in the beginning that when size was 1, then it was equal to the size of the group, size of the motions. And that we also use in the n minus 1 factorial formula of number of circular arrangements. But in general, it will be this. Now, this is a hard result. This is, I mean, hard meaning that it may not be that simple. But let's see. Suppose you have this group. Group have some lot of divisibility property because of the inverse nature. Let's say this is your group. This is your set of all motions. So these are your waste elements. Stabilizer. These are the things that are fixing x1. Okay, these are the things that are fixing x1. Now, if you hit a motion in the stabilizer set by something from outside, some other thing which is not in the stabilizer. Okay. So everything in the stabilizer you multiply with G1, with G. Okay. So you take, let's say G1 is in the stabilizer, then you do G1 times G times G1. This is a different motion, right? This motion. Now you see what does this motion do? This motion will take it to Gx1, wherever G has to take it to. G is another motion. G1 is a motion, G is a motion. These are different motions. Okay, so my point is that if G1, G2, and G3 are three motions which fix x1, okay, then not only are these bad, but they also kind of limit the possibilities of other motions. G1 is another motion, right? That will go to the motion of G only because G1 is not doing anything. But the problem it creates is that G2 will also do the same motion as G. And G3 is also going to do the same motion as G because G1, G2, G3 are the bad elements. They're the fixing, they fix x1, right? So not only that happens, but then these also just do take x1 to one other place. Okay, so think about it like this, right? These three things are taking x1 to x1. Okay, it is creating another problem, that is it other three things also are getting, they are like becoming one thing, right? They're just taking x1 to one more thing, right? These two just give two different things. Then you take another three things will be there which will also get wasted like this, right? So the number of places where x1 can go to will become this, right? Like if this was size 3, if the stabilizer had size 3, for example, right, then you can see it is clear, because then these three will take x1 to x1, but they will cause other things, they will cause groups of three to create, and those three motions will only take x1 to one other unique place. So the number of places it can go to will just become divided by the size of these three things divided by 3, and that will be the size of the orbit. But I'll say it more clearly. This was more intuitively. So more clearly speaking, what you do, you have this set of motions which fix x1. You take what you do is you take something from outside this set, which is another motion. Okay, this G is another motion, and you multiply G with all the motions that are in the stable, which are fixing. We just saw that these things will also send x1 to one other place. Okay, so two places. Now you take another motion which is outside these two sets, right? You take another motion which is outside and you again multiply it with the fixing thing. Now these motions will send x1 to one another place, third place. Okay. Now you can see that the size of these sets, stab x1, G times stabilizer of x1, G prime times, all these have the same size, and their size is stabilizer of x1. All these three motions have the same size. And similarly, you can go do, and you can break the entire group into sets. Each has size x1. You can break the set of motions. You can break the set of motions into parts. Each part has same size same as stabilizer of x1, and each part takes x1 to a unique new place. So basically, how many parts are there? That will be the number of places x1 can go to. And how many parts are there? G by stabilizer of x1, because each part has size stabilizer of x1. So does that make this formula understandable? Okay, it's clear to other people also. Okay, good. So this was one. This is already a good. I mean, to prove it rigorously, it requires more work. I'm taking certain things under the blanket, which is okay for now, maybe. All right. So yeah. So what should we do now? Yeah. So I think now we are almost done. So if you want to count the number of orbits, right? Yeah. So maybe I'll just create some space. Now that we know the size of each orbit, what's okay? So let's say we have O1, O2, O3 till OK orbits. They don't have the same size. Okay. So O1, I am saying O1, so this will have some elements, x1, x2, whatever. Okay. So what do I mean? That means that basically these are all disjoint, right? Each orbit is disjoint. They are partition, disjoint, and their union is basically going to give you entire configurations. So your set of configurations has been partition, has been broken up. Each part represents a unique thing. Up to symmetry, each part is a unique thing. We also saw that the size of each orbit would be okay. Now here is the thing. When I say this orbit, which element should I take? Actually you can take any element. You can take any elements inside the orbit. Let's say x1 is there, then the size of O1 would be G by stabilizer of that particular element. Now you will ask me, what happens if I take some other x2? How do you guarantee that you will get the same size? You will get. That's something that requires a proof. I'm not proving it. It's easy, but you can pick any element and do, you'll get the same thing. Basically, all those elements are equivalent. They can be sent to each other, okay, inside this. All right. Now let's see. So we want to find the value of K basically in terms of G and in terms of these things. So how can we do it? So I'll make a 1 for each orbit. That is what I will try to do. Make a 1 for each orbit. Okay. Because I want to get the value of K. So I'll make a 1 for each orbit. However, there are two different things. So I'm doing this and I'm doing this. So this is by 1 by orbit. Orbit 1 will be this, where x1 is in the orbit, some element in the orbit, some configuration. And this one I'll just keep like this. Okay. So this I can remove. So this is fine. Now what I'll do, I will sum this over all the orbits. Okay. OI. Yes. So this basically O1 is an orbit. Okay. So we had the set C of configurations, right? Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Yeah. So here I've just done just a trick. So I'm trying to count the number of orbits, right? So to count the number of orbits, I want to find the value of K. So I'm basically have to replace 1. I'm trying to replace 1 by a more interesting thing, which is in terms of the orbits. Okay, yeah, right. So then when I add it over, this thing will become K. Okay, and I'll get that in terms of more interesting things, which is what I'll get on this side, which is for this one. So here xi is an orbit I. Anything you can take in orbit I, it will work. That is, I'm not proving. That's I can prove, but under conjugation and so on, so say new things. So this will become stabilize size of the stabilizer of that element times the size of that orbit by g. The good thing is that the g is uniform here. That is the good thing for us. So now the k comes in terms of a more interesting thing. Now let's make it more interesting by further interpretation. Interpretation really is important. So all this was algebra, but at some point you would have to use interpretation. Now, this is a g, because the g will be same, right? So you can pull it out. G is a set of motions. That's a good thing. Yes, because when we saw that the size of an orbit or size of any orbit was was the size of g, right? When there were no fixed, when nothing in the orbit was getting fixed, right? If suppose you start with x1 and nothing, if x1 is not getting fixed by anything other than the identity, then the size was this. It did not depend on anything. It's just the answer was g all the time. When there was, if x1 was getting fixed by a few things and set of those things is stabilizer of x1, then the answer was this. So the g will be same in every case. Yeah, that's what you're asking. Okay, good. Okay, cool. So it's fine. And okay, now here is a little bit of trick. Okay, trick meaning that, yeah, I mean, since we have not seen enough group theory, so it seems a little abstract, but we'll see. What do we do here? Okay, I belongs to xi belongs to oi. Okay, now see, this stabilizer of xi is here. Now this oi will contain some elements, right? Will contain some elements. Let's say xi1, xi2, xi3, xik. That is the orbit. Let's say for okay, so I should not use this. I should use some r. Okay, let's say the orbit of I has these r things. Let's say that the orbit of I has these r things. Now this becomes essentially xi is getting fixed by these things, by these many things. Which things that can differ? Okay, so I mean, xi will obviously be there in the orbit, but there might be other things in the orbit. Xi will. Uh, but here we have the sizes. It's not exactly the motion, but yeah, it's yeah. But my point is that xi has this as the stabilizer. Okay, these many elements fix xi. xi2, which is in the same orbit, will also get fixed by this many things, but not these things. Okay, it will get fixed by this many things. Yeah, so you see, so xi2 is in the same orbit as xi, which means that xi was hit by some motion and you got xi2. Okay, something like this. Xi was hit by something and you got xi2. That's why they're in the same orbit. Now, let's say that g1 fixes xi. So it is this. Will g1 fix xi2 also? No, you can't say. From here, you cannot say that g1 will fix xi2 also. You can't say. But I can give you something which fixes xi2. That is, you kind of, what you do is you multiply by g and then you take this. You take this motion. You see, this motion will fix xi2. This g1 is fixing xi. You can see that this motion will fix xi2. So, okay, let me just adjust the motion. This new motion, this motion will fix xi2. Why? because this motion will give you xi, right? This motion will give you xi. Now you have this motion to apply. If you apply this motion, you get xi2. So you have this motion to apply. Sorry, if you apply, so 1 second, you have this. Now G1, if you apply on X1, you get Xi, you get Xi back because G1 was fixing Xi. Now you have G to apply, you get Xi2. So you say in total, this complicated motion is a conjugation motion. It's fixing Xi2. So for everything that fixes Xi, I can find a unique thing which fixes Xi2. And there's a bijection and so on. So number of things that fix Xi is the same as number of things that fix Xi2 if they are in the same orbit. But the items are themselves not exactly the same. Okay. Yeah, and as groups actually they are isomorphic and such, means that practically they are the same motions, but yeah, like if one is a rotation 90-degree clockwise, other will be 90-degree clockwise and so on. Okay, my point is that you can distribute it like this, xi times xi. I mean, basically you can distribute it like this, x stabilizer of xi plus stabilizer of xi2 and you can do this for every orbit. For orbit of every L, for every orbit I'm doing this. For every I, okay, for every I. Stabilizer of xi3 and so on. This is a summation of summations, remember. So stabilizer of xir. And so this was just in one orbit, I opened it up. Okay, I can do this for every orbit. Basically, in the end, I am doing this for every element of the configuration set. Right now, if I change the I go to a different orbit. In that orbit, for every element, I can add up their stabilizers, size of the stabilizers. Okay, is this step okay? That if these are in the same orbit, then the size of the stabilizer of x1 is same as stabilizer of this, same as stabilizer of this. Right, the size is same, isn't it? I mean, see the size of this guy here would be stabilizer xi times r, and that's what basically I've written here. But their size is all same as stabilizer of xi, so it's the same thing. Is this part clear? Okay. All right. Now, and this will, I'll end up doing this for every element of the configuration set. So in the end, what you will get is summation j belongs to the configuration set stabilizer of xj. Now the addition is over the entire configuration set. This is the number of orbits. Okay. Now there is yet another way to interpret this. I am taking here in this summation, I am putting my finger on an element and I'm saying, what are all the motions which fix it? And I'm taking the size. Okay. However, I can do the double counting I can do it in a different way from the perspective of the motions. Here I am putting x1 and I'm looking at those things which fix x1. Let's say these things fix x1. Then I'm taking x2, some other things. I mean, some other things which fix x2. I'll say it in a better way, maybe. These things, putting a 1 on the top to denote that it's for x1. These are the fix xi, fix the corresponding one. I'm looking at x2, and then I am looking at those things which fix x2. Then I'm looking at x3, those things that fix x3, and I'm collecting all their sizes and adding it and taking its average, kind of dividing by the size of the group. But I can instead do it in a different way. I can pick an element. I can calculate this grand size in a different way. I can pick an element, let's say this element, and I can ask him, I can ask the element, I can ask this motion, how many things did you fix? Right? I can ask, if I ask every motion, how many things did you fix? I will get the same thing as this. Basically, how many times G1, this G11 comes in this entire list? How many times the G12 comes in this entire list? If I do this for all the elements, all the motions, I'll just get the same list again. It's like a double counting. Is it fine? So J is okay. So I mean, yeah. So this is wrong, bad notation. I should say XJ. XJ is a particular configuration. Okay, yeah, right. That you're right. Okay, so this I'm basically for every configuration I'm asking how many things, how many motions fix it. But I can also say this in a different way. I can ask every motion how many elements do you fix. So it means that I can write this, come full circle, I can write it as this, and now I can do it over the motions because the set of all configurations is huge. Set of all motions is better. It has a very good, it's a set of symmetries, it has very good group theory in it. But different sets you meet with different days may not have good, yeah, you may not know what to do with them. But anyways, the point is that this is now you can do for every motion. For every motion you can ask number of configurations fixed by GI. These are also called fixed points of the motion GI. Okay, so you take a motion and see what configurations does it fix. For example, yeah, okay. This is the number of orbits. Mm-hmm. G11, yeah. That will be a part of the summation of stabilizer of x1. Yeah, all these are part of stabilizer of x1, and all these are part of stabilizer of x2. Yeah. No. Motions. No. Yeah, you're right. I mean, you have to say like this: pick a motion and ask what configurations does it fix. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that fixes x1, but it may fix other things also. And something's in x2, x3. Yeah, maybe. I mean, it's possible that this G21 may be equal to G11. I am writing it as different because I want to be safe. And you see, you will get the same summation in the end. Yeah, if you add it over all the motions. So it's a double counting. Whether you add it over all the motions and see the fixed points, how many things each motion fixes, or you add it over all the configurations and see which motions fix that configuration. Okay, this will get the same thing. This is the general thing about double counting. You get this. Now this is still not, I mean, yeah. Mhm. That will happen if they are in the same orbit. Yeah, but if I don't, but I want to write it over all the configurations in the end. So I'm going element wise. Yeah. Mm, it is a double summation, but this part I have written. Yeah, so this part I could have written in a summation way and in one shot. Yes, so this is basically what, yeah, that's right. You can write it. That's correct. But the thing is that basically this is a question of writing it better. Okay. So you can write it like this. Okay. But now at this point, we are just addressing one element, one configuration in that orbit. Okay. Haha, yeah, okay, this is perfectly right. But it will not help you to move to the next step, and you'll never move to this step if you don't split it, if you don't distribute it to every element of the orbit. Okay, because see, going from this step to this step, I'm heavily using the fact that if you are in an orbit, then all the elements, they have the same stabilizer size. I am heavily using that. Yeah, otherwise, if you're not user, you won't come forward. And all this is happening because it's a group. If you're acting by some monoids or non-invertible functions and all them, these things don't happen. Then the theory is much more complicated. That goes into semi-group theory, Green's theory, and so on. But yeah, that's fine. Yeah, so let me write the formula in the end then. Okay, just clear this up and I'll say, okay, so number of, so you don't even have to know the proof of what we did now, even if you forget, it doesn't matter. It's a complicated thing, okay? But we want to use it in combinatorics, that's the point. So number of orbits would be, you take G a motion, fixed points of G. You take every motion and you ask how many fixed points does it have. That will be our answer. That will be the number of orbits. But this itself is not useful, because how, given a particular, now the question, we come to a different problem now, right? Given given a motion G, you see, given a motion G, how many things does it fix? How do you find this? I mean, if you can't find this, then all this is useless. This is okay. This is called what is known as a Burnside lemma. Okay, Burnside lemma. I mean, if you're reading it, you can see. Yeah, but I'll suggest not to spend too much time on this. Otherwise, you'll get deviated from the, yeah. Okay, the point is that it even holds for infinite sets on a cardinal arithmetic level, but yeah. Given a motion G, how many things does it fix is now what we want to know. Let's come to the congress. That's if you can find a technique for that, then it's done. Let's see. So we have these 6 points. Now I'll not number the points. There's no point in doing that. We have the 6 points. Here the cycle thing will come in the picture. Cycle thing will heavily come in the picture. We'll see. Let's say I have 3 colors. Maybe it's better to say RGB. RGB. Okay. Now, let's start with the motion. Okay. 6 points, right? So let's take the motion A, rotation, 2D rotation, of course, by 2 pi by 6. Let's take this motion, which is rotation by 2 pi by 6. What configuration can this fix? Let's see. If I have a R here, and if I want this motion to fix the configuration that I will form from this, I have not yet formed any configuration. I'm just trying to force the formation. If I apply this motion, this R over here is going to move here. So these two both must be R. Both must be R. Right? That's a necessary condition for this configuration to be fixed. Now this R would have moved to this place. So this must also be R. And so all of them must be R. So basically this rotation will fix a configuration only if all the colors are same. Fixes those configurations in which all, not very interesting, are same. So how many does it fix? So fix of A It's just 3. Number of colors. Number of colors. Is this point okay? You can also see now it has to do with cycles. The problem was that this A had only one cycle. The A is powerful. It could start from here and it could reach all the points in that configuration. It could reach all the points. The point is that given a motion, all the points that it can reach to, you have to give only one color to those points for it to be fixed, for that configuration to be fixed. Let's do another one, then you can see. So it's in fact easy to figure out the number of configurations, fortunately. Again, let's look at A square. So when you have A square is going to take this R, not to the second one, but to this one. So this one must be R. If I put the top one to be R, then this one must be R. I'm sorry. And then this one must be R. So these three, which are a part of one cycle, should have the same color. Similarly, the other two, I'll just do it to the green only, because otherwise it will serve its purpose negatively. Then these three should also have the same color. So how many things will it fix? Can anybody say? How many configurations is A square going to fix? I've given in front of you one particular configuration only. Another one, can you, okay, 3 choose 2 is not correct, but maybe if we can make it correct. Yes, exactly, that's right. So in that way you can get many, right? So basically, see, the point is that in the end, 3 choose 2, I think what you said, you had the right idea, but you made some silly conceptual mistake. See, these three have one choice. So 3 for that. Any means one choice out of the 3. For the other cycle, you have another choice. So it is 3 to the power number of cycles. In this case, it's 3 square. Now the game is not much left. It's easy now. So in general, G is going to fix number of colors, which is again an easy constant which will be given in the beginning, to the power number of cycles. So we don't even need to know the exact cycle structure. We just need to know the number of cycles. Okay. Well, the exact cycle structure is important if you are doing a more complicated version of this problem, where it will be like, you have to use 2 reds, 3 greens, and 1 blue. That's a much more complicated version of Boolean enumeration. That requires a multivariate generating function, knowledge of cycle index, and some other things. That's which we will not. I think we should not do that. So yeah. So number of colors to the power number of cycles of G, of this G, of this motion. Okay. So the formula becomes, this was algebraic, now it became combinatorial. Right. G, number of colors, let's say that there were Y colors, right? That's what we are started with. Let's label it here. Let's call this Y. So this thing is Y. Y to the power number of cycles of G. Here is a very interesting thing about this thing. This means that your answer will in the end, like this answer in the end would look like, it will be a polynomial evaluated at the number of colors. Like if you change the number of colors, the answer will not change too much. It will be easy to find the answer, right? You can just change this. That is, so it means it's a polynomial, and this has to also be related with something called chromatic polynomial of a graph, where that's also a polynomial in the end. which is very weird because computation is a very difficult question. But anyways, this thing, okay, let us answer this question fully for once, and yeah, this question fully, for this particular problem, so that I can say that we have at least done one problem. Okay, there are many problems which can be done by, I mean, this is a whole book you can read on this topic. Okay, I mean, not that I know, I probably know only 10% of the, yeah, yeah, not even that maybe. So the point is this, now let's do this problem. So a fixes, a fixes 3, a fixes 3, right? A fixes 3, a square fixes 3 square things. A cube, what will be fix of a cube? Basically you have to ask how many cycles a cube has. And if someone doesn't want to do that, they can actually explicitly do. That's also advisable to get a feel for this number of cycles thing. 3 to the power of 3. Yes. No, that's right. Yeah, no, you don't need to guess. It's right. I mean, in the sense that you can say it confidently. Meaning that what I'm saying is that if you have a cube, then you can take this to this. This is one cycle. So it means they have to have the same color, right? These two things have to have the same color. If you're acting by G cube, these two have to have the same color. And this two have to have another color, 3 choices for that. And then this thing have to have another color, 3 choices for that. So 3 cube. Right. Now in general, if you could find the formula for number of cycles of a to the power I in terms of GCD, then the problem would become much more simpler. But that's again, you have to do some number theoretic work there. Okay, but in the sense that, yeah, all this can be made. What about a to the power 4? Someone else can say number of fix of a to the power 4. Why 3 to the power 4? It doesn't have 4 cycles. A to the power, how many cycles will a to the power 4 have? Let's see. So suppose you start with this thing, or you can even forget about this cycle thing. Just ask yourself how many things it will fix. Let's say you put a color here. Let's say you put red. You put red here. Okay. It means that you take 4 steps from here, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. You come here. This should also have red. Okay, or same color. Maybe I'll just do not this, but just like this. See, now here, if you take 4 steps, 3, 4, you come here. Yes, exactly. You'll get only 2 cycles. So you have only 2, 3, 3. 3 times 3, c square. Right? So that is more better way you can say, but this will not always happen because this here we are using the structure of the set. This will not. This is not independent of the problem. So this will not always happen. This is the GCD of 4 and 6. So after you do all this, you will get that the final answer will. So I missed one thing. I have forgotten the divide average. It's basically in some sense a expectation kind of thing, linearity of expectation and such you can use to. Also, I don't know if that works out as a proof, but it seems to me as because it's an average. Basically, see, we are adding over all the fixed points and then we are dividing by the size. So it's like, what is the average number of points that a particular motion fixes? What is the average number of points that a particular motion fixes? Yeah, that is basically the answer. Yes, so just give us 3 minutes. Okay, we'll get started. That's the average number of points that a particular motion fixes. And that is the answer. That's the number of orbits. And that makes sense, right? Because the bigger that average is, oh, wait a minute. Is that does that make sense? If the average number of points that it fixes, yeah, that is what it is. But I don't. If that does that make intuitive sense? That I was going to say, but that's probably not correct. Because see, yes. So basically, see, this can be. I mean, saying that I'm saying that this is an elegant statement. That's what I'm saying. that this is basically average number of configurations fixed by a motion. That is a number. In a very sweet way, this can be written as the answer, isn't it? Because we are taking all the fixed number of things that are fixed by a configuration, we are adding and then we are dividing by g. This is the marks that every motion gets, fix of g, right? And then we are dividing by the total number of uh, subjects or whatever, yeah, by the total size of the set. This is the average. It's the average fixed point of everything, and that is a number of orbits. Yeah. Now my sense was that, I mean, the more things that a particular, if the average is bigger, then that's like, everything is fixing, every element is fixing more and more objects, and so the number of orbits a number, yes, that's right, basically that makes absolute sense, right? See, the more things that it fixes, the more things we have the set of configurations, right? And the every g fixes more and more sets, then the partition will be finer and finer, right? Like if you just take one g and let's say it fixes these guys, right, and it leaves these guys unfixed, okay, you bring a g2, it fixes more things, that's, you get a partition. You bring g3, it fixes more things, so you get further parts, and these are your orbits. So yeah, you're right, the more things it fixes, the more the whole thing big stone breaks into more and more stones, the more things are getting fixed. It makes intuitive sense. These things can be used. This is an average factor, it's an average, can be used to attack many probabilistic questions which are sometimes otherwise impossible to do. But anyways, see, in the end, what the answer we will get, let's talk about that. So in the end, you will get 3 square, 3 cube. Now you can imagine that this kind of problem can be done by very messy casework, right? You will do like 6 cases and you can do this problem, kind of, right? And for 3, that's for a to the power 4. For a to the power 5, you will see that you will only get one cycle again, because this GCD is 1. A to the power 5. Okay, and I missed one thing. The identity permutation or the identity motion has 6 cycles. Has 6 cycles, right? The identity motion the identity motion fixes everything. It fixes everything in the set. So that 3 to the power 6, the mandatory 3 to the power 6 will always be there. Okay, this is your answer, divided by 6, of course. It is not even clear that this is an integer. I mean, okay, it's clear in this case, but it's a bit of matter of a luck, because this 3 is divisible by 6. But if you just had like 5, the answer, if there were 5 colors, the answer would change like this just in a minute. And it's not even clear that this is an integer. Okay, but this is the answer. You see, if there are 5 colors, this would be the answer. That's simple. Okay, in general, the answer would be, I'll say that for homework, you have to prove that. That will be good. Basically, it will be number of colors, t is the number of colors to the power GCD of I and n, and running over the GCD. I mean, running I running from 0 to I running from 0 to n, or 1 to n minus 1, something like this will be the answer. Okay, so this is the application. Is it okay till here? I think I'll stop, because other applications will not do then today, or I think we will not do it at all. I'll give some for homework, because then we have to move to other things. Okay, we'll come back to it if later on we see that there's time, maybe after the exam and something like that. But there are many applications of this. Okay, is it okay till here? And in fact, other applications will require you to know more math, some graph theory and all that, some good amount mostly. Okay, so is it okay till here? Is it fine? Okay, yeah, so very small application, but a lot of theory. Yeah. Okay, so that's it for today. Okay, I'll do a next class, I'll do a class on functions. That will be a basic class. We're doing, I don't know what, we were doing logarithmic functions, so it'll be easy. So I think most of you don't need to attend. Anyways, yeah, it'll be like a J advanced type class. Okay, so that's it for today. Tomorrow I think we'll have a problem solving session, and after I'll update you. Okay, thanks for attending. Bye.